Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of Bring It On. My name's Bob Hayes and I'm going to be your show host. I have two members of Hanson Energy Committee with me today. And I know this is a hot subject. Marianne DiMascio is the chair and Jim Armstrong is the vice chair. And these two are no secret to being wicked good community volunteers. They've done a little bit of everything from Hanson Green Clean Days and all stuff. Jim was Board of Selectmen and school committee chair, and they're both great volunteers, and I applaud you for what you do. So we're going to talk today to try and give the residents a little bit of a inside talk about what's going on in town. It seems to be spread out all over the internet to do with energy. So if you guys want to just start, I know energy is a big deal. When you buy electricity, and correct me in any of my statements if I am wrong, and you buy it, you can bundle it, and you can buy it at a different rate. Now, tons of questions have come up, and I know you guys ran and I hate to date shows, but you ran a meeting the other night at the police station and had a tremendous outpouring of people coming in and asking questions. And the best audience is an educated audience. So we'll jump right into it. A lot of people are concerned and a lot of the different stuff that's going on with this particular program. To sort of back it up a little bit, this got voted, I believe, last year at town meeting, 2 years ago at town meeting. The residents that were there voted to start this procedure. Marianne, Jim, take off and tell me how it went from there.
Sure, I can start. So it was October 2021 at town meeting, voted in, as you said, a procedure. It wasn't all done. This is something that the town can go through, and there's spots along the way to decide. The select board have to vote on it. There are many steps along the way, and basically, if you consider it's like a bulk buying for electricity. So right now we get our energy, or I should just say electricity from National Grid, and they change their rates every 6 months or so. And so residents of Hanson get whatever National Grid is giving us in terms of rates. So we have the opportunity to do almost like a bulk buying program where we say people in the town will go into this program, town will go out to bid to get a good energy price, and we get a better energy price because we're a bigger group. It's like if I'm just one person, I'm not getting as good a rate possibly if it's a whole group. So we did that. We went through the whole system of having to get approved by the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities. And then the town administrator, after we went out to bid, signed a contract saying that we have a rate for 30 months for electricity for the residents of Hanson.
Okay, I've got a question about that, and I think this is valid. NatGrid changes the rate every 6 months.
Right.
This is a 30-month bid.
Fixed rate for 30 months.
Okay, so you're locked into it for 30 months, because one of the questions I read the other night, because as everyone knows, we all go to the internet to see to get the heartbeat of America, so to speak, in small town Hanson. If you buy energy for 30 months and energy happens to go down, what happens? Does the 30-month bid stay the same?
Yes,
okay.
It does not change at all. We have the RFP we put out for suppliers was
request for proposal, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we had a request for proposal. We had looked at a couple of terms. One was 48 months and one was 30 months. We decided on the 30-month because it was a better rate, and we did not want to come. We wanted to come to the town with the best rate we could find.
Now, Jim, I did a little bit of exploring, obviously, so I wouldn't get here and not quite know anything about it. But historically, I looked up the rates that NatGrid gives, and they climb. Mm-hmm. They keep climbing. Because that was one of the questions. I couldn't answer it on the internet because I don't get involved with the internet answering anything. So the 30-month bid is a safe kind of a bid, you would say, for the simple reason of it doesn't go down, it always rises.
That's what they say about most things, but there are times it does come down. So one of the things that the state requires us to tell everybody, and it's in all of our publications, is it does not mean you're always going to get the lowest price. But right now, we are the lowest price. as the numbers are fixed at the same rate. I will tell you, Bob, one of the unique parts is, as you know, I'm an energy engineer. This is what I do for a living.
Oh, I know you do. Jim.
So I've been involved in the energy supply procurement since 1998 when they first deregulated.
So just to jump in, because I want everybody to understand the terms, that's why I said RFP. Because from school committee days, people would say, Bob, what was RFP? Request for proposal. So energy bidding and buying and procurement is exactly what we're really talking about for the town of Hanson, and that's what you do for a living.
Yes, sir. Well, that's one of the things I do.
I understand.
Marianne always says I know too much about this business. But with that being said, on your bill, there's only one small portion that says generation charge. And that's the only part of the bill that we are getting you a different rate for. Everything else to do with wires, to maintain the service to the power. If you lose power, any of those things, National Grid is still there to do all that for you. And they are no longer, in 1998, the state required them to divest of all their power plants. So they could not own the power plants anymore. They divested it and they sold them off to different entities. And they had to go out to RFP to buy power for everyone else starting in 1998. That market was mainly commercial for the first 10 years. And then it became residential probably about 8 to 10 years ago. The businesses who sell it made it make sense that you can buy it at the house. I happen to be one of the earlier buyers in my home. And I love telling the story because I'm in the business. I went out, found a company to buy it from my house. I got it cheaper than I did from National Grid myself. And then it started creeping up, and I wasn't watching it. I saw it creeping up, and next thing I know, I'm up to 18 cents when National Grid was at 14 cents. Here I'm in the business, and I didn't do it right, okay? So one of the things that we're doing in this process is by setting it up for a 30-month fixed rate, we know how long it's going to be. We come in June of this year, and 30 months later is when we'd have another one. And as a committee, we can choose to pick another supplier or change the rates if it's earlier, however we want to do it. But that's going to be about 2 years from now. So
Okay.
this is only that one portion of the bill. It's got nothing to do with servicing your electric power.
Right.
Well, that is a big question of some of the population in Hanson, especially older residents, that it's a big deal. If power goes out, there's no question. I mean, you know, Nat Grid is still delivering the source of
Yes.
power.
They're-
It's going through National Grid wires, poles, transformers,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. So the distribution is all the same, and your bill is the same except for one line.
Okay, so approximately now, and again, correct me if I'm being incorrect, because I read it last night again on the internet, and you can't believe everything there. 18 cents versus 13 cents per kilowatt hour,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Am I saying that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So you're going to save 5 cents per kilowatt hour. How would that average out? Like, the part that I couldn't see, because I don't do any of the electrical bills at home. My wife handles it, and I have a business that I have secretaries. I don't get involved with any of that. I just know electricity is expensive. My electric bill at the garage is around $2,800 a month.
Right. So
So if you're saving
take-
5 cents a kilo, and the businesses are not in Hanson.
The average home
Right.
uses about 300 kilowatt hours. So if you look at 300 kilowatt hours times 5 cents, that's what, $15?
$15.
yeah.
That's
And
the
you're
average
using
savings.
a little more, so
Yeah, mine would.
So that's why I give you the round numbers real simple.
Yeah,
That you're literally talking about $15 savings per household.
per month.
Per month.
right.
Okay,
And that's on the average. Summertime, they tend to go up high.
$180 a year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And what you asked before, I would just go back to the question that you asked a couple of questions ago about what happens if the rate goes up or down for National Grid. So this rate is the same for 30 months. It's 18.2 cents, and then the standard rate is 13.6. So it's about 4.5 cents. There's another rate that's about 5
Yeah,
cents.
4.5 cents, 5 cents.
So that's what it is right now. When National Grid goes out to bid for their next period, that might drop. We don't know what that number will be. It depends on so many things. So your savings might get smaller at some point. Usually the rates are higher in the winter and a little lower in the summer. So I think last year someone online, I don't know if you saw, there's someone from Pembroke who had this program last year. They were locked into a rate, and they said that the rates last year were like 33 cents per kilowatt hour. Remember how expensive it was last
Yes,
winter?
it was very
So
expensive.
they were saying, "Oh boy, we saved a lot of money last year." But we don't know what will happen with prices. But the key thing is, if you look at National Grid's new rates and you want to opt out, you can opt out with at any time. You can opt out. You can decide to opt out back in if the rates go up again. You can opt in and out without any fees, cancellations,
There's no charges.
anything. No,
'Cause
nothing.
That
Nothing.
was a big question that I again saw on the internet. Somebody from another town said there was a $150 charge.
For some of the third-party suppliers, like Jim, who went out for his, he had his own supplier, and each person who has a supplier has to check to see if there's a cancellation fee before they join Hanson Community Power. Because if there is, then they'll have to pay that cancellation fee if they switch.
That's only though if they have a third party
Right.
character currently.
Currently,
And
yes.
for example, I have NRG right now. That's the name of the company who supplies my power. NRG is directly related to the company. We selected Direct Energy, and I've already done the check. I have no fee to change over. But I'm going to go from 18 cents down to 13 cents myself, because I'm at right now just about the same as the National Grid rate with NRG. But I never saw the spikes that everyone else saw last winter because I already had a fixed rate. So when I'm coming right down to it is, there's a couple of options. The only other oddball, Bob, I want to be upfront with you on is those people who have solar on their rooftop or any kind of generation that they're doing themselves. It doesn't affect that at all. It's only the portion of power that they buy from National Grid. So if I have solar on my house, obviously in the middle of the night, I'm not making power. So I have to buy some electricity in the middle of the night.
Sure.
I use that basic example. That's the only portion that's affected by this change.
Same as I have a whole house generator. If it pops on, it shuts me off from the street. I'm not paying that grid anything.
Right.
I'm creating my own power.
Mm-hmm.
And it shuts me off the street just so people will know. So the electric, if we had a power out, my generator's not feeding the line and electrocuting the guy that's fixing the wire
Right,
down
it's
the
just
street.
your house.
It's called a disconnect switch.
Yes.
Because that was one of the questions. One of the other questions was the fee thing. You guys did a great job the other night at the police station. What were some of the things that people were asking about that they were very nervous about?
I had one question that struck me. Someone was asking, what will this do to our taxes? Does this have any impact on the town? And it was a very clear answer that this is, even though the town signed the contract for the rates, it has no impact on the finances of the town. It's between each of us and National Grid, what we're paying. It will not change our taxes at all. So that was just one question that was asked. It has no impact on taxes or anything for the town.
Well, obviously, I would think it wouldn't because it's private.
Yeah.
Each house is individually
Right.
supplied. Now, the good question is, all the residents of the town, let's just say we have a big bundle of people that sign up. There was also talks about commissions, and we'll get back to that later, but is the town going to get on this program itself to save kilowatt hours?
That's a
Jim?
decision by the select board if they want to do it later. They have to decide to opt in. This is only automatic for residential customers. This is not automatic for commercial customers. This is not automatic for municipal customers. They have the option to opt in. So if you have a small business in town and you want to take advantage of this rate, all you do is call the number that's on all the brochures we have at the town website, and you can opt in. Make sure when you do that, though, you have your electric bill in front of you because you need to know your account number and all those details. So you have to have your bill in order to make that change. But the town can opt in, the school district can opt in, anybody who is in the town of Hanson can opt in, and they're National Grid customers right now.
Okay.
And can I add one thing?
Almost certainly.
I thought you were going to say this, that the town has been on some kind of municipal.
I've been working with them for buying power.
The town has
for
been on
years.
it for a long time. When Lisa Green was there the other night, the town administrator, she said the town has saved about $42,000 since they signed a contract in 2021 for rates that were lower than.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. So
The
it's a
town
similar
saved-
program, but different than this.
Yeah,
But-
with a different company, and it's different because this is newer.
We
Yeah.
started
So the
doing
town
that
has
back
been
when I
on
was.
it.
We've been doing that since probably about 2002. When I was a selectman, I started helping them do that.
So the town saved how much in the last
Well,
3 or 4 years?
I think Lisa said 42,000
Over the last 3 years.
3 years.
42,000 over 3 years is a ton of money, an absolute ton of money. So percentage-wise, if you sort of dumb it down to the household at $180 a year, roughly, that a household would save. If the town it's saved over 3 years, $42,000, the town uses quite a bit of energy.
Right. Versus a single household, yes.
Okay, another question that was out there was, there were some people that were like, who gives anyone the right to vote on something to change our energy bills? And you're talking about opting out. In other words, they were a little bit discouraged that they would have to opt out. They wanted to be the program that you had to opt in, as I understand it. What can you explain that, how it comes about?
Sure.
That no one intentionally went after any of the residents? I just want everybody to be clear. This is try to be more educational for people so they understand, because when you start playing with electricity or anything that affects somebody, they get nervous.
Right.
I mean, I had questions. I read the letter. I got the letter at my house and I read it, and it had a postcard in it and all of the above. And there were people that said I never got one. And a lot of people take the mail and, oh yeah, this isn't mine, and they don't even open it and it ends up. I can see that happening.
One thing about who doesn't get it, if you have a third party supplier, thank you, you won't get one in the mail. So I have used a third-party supplier, so I didn't get a postcard or a letter, but I'm able to opt in. So I used the information on their website, went online, and I opted in for it. But if you're using National Grid, you should have received a letter and a postcard. If you didn't, they said occasionally there's some problems with addresses, and also you can go to the HansonCommunityPower.com and take care of that. You can call the number on the website. But you asked another question.
To answer your question,
Sure.
The state, when they allowed us, first of all, the Green Communities Act, which was enacted over 10 years ago, had a lot of changes every year it goes to it. One of the things it allowed us to do is we had a lot of towns that asked about municipal power. For example, right nearby Hingham or Middleborough. Hingham Electric Company, they're their own municipal power company, but they own all their own wires. Middleborough is the same way. We don't have that same legislative right because we are in a franchise territory, and National Grid is the only one who is allowed to transmit power across public ways in the state of Hanson. So in other words, if I was doing, one of the things we looked at years ago was to look at the Thomas Mill to run power, if we put a water wheel on the Thomas Mill to feed Town Hall. We can't do it because it has to be on our property only. I can't cross the street, even though it's a town street, I can't do it. So what that meant is that they had the franchise right to our town. The generation charge was the only part they allowed you to go out to bid for. So with all that coming together, the state had a lot of guidelines. Those guidelines included, when you do this RFP, they required us to have everybody opt in. And that was a market decision made by the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, to say when you go out to RFP, you have a better right for better chance for bigger savings by knowing everybody has to opt out rather than opt in. It was our chance to get bigger savings. The state PUC has developed that guideline. We are required to follow the state guidelines.
So, makes sense.
It's the market reasons why they did it. And it's not that often government's that smart. But I could joke about it with you. Bob, you and I have been involved in this for a while, so we can joke. Oh my God. But when they made decisions like that, it's the one question that Marianne and I get the most is, why do I have to opt out?
Yeah, and I actually, as I was reading it, Jim, I was saying the same thing, because I'm not really anti-government, but I could see what people thought they were getting pushed into something, and they were naturally a little nervous about it.
Understood.
Totally understood. And it's, you're not officially opted in until 30 days after that you're notified. So May 18 is the day when you'll be opted in. So if people do want to opt out, they can either send the postcard back, call the number, or go online and opt out.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you heard Marianne. You have till May 18th to opt out.
However, after May 18th, you can also opt out at any time. It's just that's the that you have 30 days where they're going to then enroll you, and then you would have to opt out again after that. But it's not.
Okay, I get it. Now, just to be plenty sure for people, if they opt in or opt out, there is no change in service. It's not like the power is
Right.
going to be cut off for
Correct.
an hour and we're going to change back.
Nothing.
The wires aren't touched. Nothing is done. It's just through a billing situation.
That's
Am I
Yes,
correct?
yes. And
It's
again,
a paper shuffle.
right.
Exactly.
And again, on the bill, just to clarify again, there's just one line that will change on the bill. You get the same bill from National Grid. All the distribution fees and information that's on the top will be the same. There's a line on the second part of the bill that says supply or generation, and that is the rate will change on that. That's the only thing.
And mine, for example, says NRG on my bill, NRG supply. So that's the difference. It's going to be direct energy supply will be the new name that's on there.
And Direct Energy, are they a nationwide
Yeah,
company?
they're a big company.
Because that was another thing is like who, I think some of the comments that I read were about solar companies, how solar companies come in and there was trouble with some, and some were awesome, some were not so good, some were horrible. This isn't private individual companies,
No,
am I
this is a
correct?
big corporation.
This is a big corporation that's doing it.
Yes.
And at any minute, and I've caught this, Marianne said this, that you can opt out anytime you want.
Yes, and you just need to know that it will be at the next meter read. So it
Yeah,
wouldn't
the
be
next
that. It wouldn't
30
be that
days.
day. It would be just the next time you do the meter read. That's when it switches out.
Well,
So
that makes perfect sense.
Now, to confuse things a little bit, and I always do this, and Marianne's about to give me a hit.
Jim, I've known you a long time.
Because residential supply is not live metered. In other words, commercial customers, large commercial customers, have a direct line for the power company, so they know how much power they're using every minute of the day.
Yep.
They have things called demand charge, things like
Yep.
that. Residential's not that complicated. So a lot of the paperwork involved in this process is literally because they only see your bill once a month. They literally, that whole paperwork, they're putting power on the line based on what they project you use, but they only get billed based on what you actually use. So there's a little bit of a paper shuffle. This is a paper shuffle in how you buy power. It really comes down to it. And it's ironic because the same thing when you get into, and I'm going to bring it up because you haven't asked the question yet, on the renewable charge, when you buy the greener energy.
Yes.
Okay. There are three rates in this process we put together. There is the standard offer rate, which uses 10% more renewable power than what were required by the state. That was what we as a committee voted to make happen because we want to make the town a leader in green energy. There was like a 0.01 cent kilowatt hour difference between the lowest rate and this one, but it is a little bit lower if you go with the other option, but it's so small it's going to cost you maybe 5 cents a month.
Okay. Just explain, because
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that question.
Right.
I'm glad that you brought it up.
Well, you knew
because, Jim, I know him for a long time. The greener rate is such a minuscule cost, but it's cleaner.
Yes.
Am I correct? Like,
Right.
greener
Green.
is cleaner, and everybody should be worried. This is a problem child, because 100 years from now, when you dig it up out of the ground, it's going to look just like it looks right now.
But you
Right.
recycle yours, Bob, so that's not going to
Pardon me?
happen. You recycle yours.
Yeah, I do.
So,
So
oh, go ahead. I talk too much.
no, you'll have something to add after I say it. So as a committee, we had two goals. One was to have good rates for the residents of Hanson, so if possible that they could save money. And the second was to consider clean energy choices in the mix. And so when we voted that we would like to consider upping slightly from, there's a state minimum amount of renewable energy, and we considered having a 10% option for the standard rate on here. And it's just in terms of the future and thinking of our children and grandchildren, the more clean energy we have, the better their future will be as we move forward. You know, that's sort of where things are going. So we felt like it was part of we voted that it would be part of what we would look at when we were picking the rates. So
As like an offering. If people
Yes.
wanted to pay a little bit more, they could opt into that?
well,
Is that no?
one difference. We
See, that's what a lot of people are
right.
thinking of
There
that.
are three different rates, and so we opted for a rate that is 13.693 cents with 10% more renewables than is required by the state,
Totally included in the rate.
included in the rate. If someone wants to opt to a rate without any additional renewables, it's 13.28 cents. So it's about, what, 0.04 less. So it's like a little less than half a cent
Right.
less per kilowatt hour. And if you wanted to opt up to more renewables, which is what I did, 100% renewables, it is 14.738. So you have the option to go up or down, but we chose the standard was with 10% renewables with this with a small amount difference. But any people can opt down to the lower rate if they want, or opt up to the 100%.
It was interesting because that was one of the confusing points that came up in our meeting at the police station, is what is renewable energy? In the state of Massachusetts, there are 3 classes, Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 3 includes everything that's not fossil fueled. So in other words, if I have a biogas digester that takes the waste, Deer Island is a good example where they actually make electricity based on the gas coming off of everybody's effluent. I'm trying to clean this up and say it the right way. There's other
Sewage
places.
treatment.
That's
Sewage
an
treatment
interesting
plant.
concept.
Well, the other options you have is, for example, all of our trash from the town of Hanson goes to CMAS.
Yeah.
CMAS is not a fossil fuel plant. So that's considered Class 3 renewables. But it doesn't meet the requirement of Class 1, which is the standard we went with, and which is the same standard that the state of Massachusetts, in its renewable portfolio standard, which happened, this has got to be almost 15 years ago, what it required was all public utilities to actually require them to buy power and increase the amount of renewable energy, Class 1 renewable, by 2% per year. And every year it goes up 2%. We're at about 30% Class 1 renewable energy now. Now, if you look at the total energy, we're at closer to 50 to 60% if you look at all 3 classes. Now, the other part that I thought was interesting, and I thought of this after we had the meeting on Monday, one of the gentlemen in the audience said, I have solar panels on my roof. When you have a solar panel on your roof, you actually earn what's called a renewable energy, a REC, a renewable energy credit for making electricity on your own house. You earn this certificate, just like we did at the high school.
Yes.
Those certificates have cash value. Part of our process is because, like I said earlier on the metering, the power is actually, whether it's bought from an electric supplier or bought through RECs, at the same time, it actually same class value. So what we've also done is create a market for those RECs to hopefully increase the value of those RECs. So if you make solar on your house, we are one of the towns who helps make that value better by not just using it under the renewable portfolio standard by the state of Massachusetts for all utilities. The towns that are doing this, and some of the recent towns that are doing this, Marshfield, Pembroke, Rockland are doing this. The other towns are doing the same type of things we are. We were a little behind. There are other towns that are ahead of us, but we're just trying to catch up.
All right. Well, you're not going to believe it, but we're coming to the very end of this, and it's been a very interesting conversation. I hope it answers, ladies and gentlemen, some of your questions. Is there a way for people to get a hold of your committee direct if they have some sort of a question? Do you guys have an email address? Or?
We don't have a committee email address, but for Hanson Community Power, it's hansоncommunitypower.com.
Yeah.
And on there, it has all the information. It has rates. It has the phone number you can call.
Our consultant, Good Energy, actually has people who will answer their questions.
We could read the phone number, too, if that's helpful.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, you can go online to hansoncommunitypower.com and get your questions answered. I'm sure if you stop by Town Hall,
Yes.
they would be more than happy to give you a brochure or any other guidance. If you have any other questions or concerns, you can contact me directly at bobhayes4433@gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell phone at 617-538-0189. We are trying to bring you shows that will help you make your decisions to do things in the beautiful town of Hanson. So don't hesitate to call. Don't hesitate to ask questions. It's how we all figure it out. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Bring It On. Stay tuned. We will be back.